done the verse number 6 a little, and if there's a bit of doubt there, we'll clarify that. And we would today be, I mean, because there's a long dialogue on the verse number 7 in Madhusudani, I do not want to spoil the progress. We will go into that tomorrow, but we will try to clarify what are the three types of Tyaga that Bhagavan is advising Arjuna about, which he promised in the verse number 4 of this chapter. So, what he's trying to say in the verse number 6, Etanyapita karmani sangam tyaktva phalani cha kartavyani ti me partha nishchitam matamam uttamam. Mata muttamam. Matam uttamam. Bhagavan is clarifying that, he's reassuring. What he's trying to say here is that I am not asking you to actually stop doing your karma. Do not try to run away from your karma. That is not the purpose of my dialogue with you. I'm making a very specific advice to you. And what is that? You continue to do these karmas, including Nitya karmas, especially Nitya karmas, because Kamya karmas, nobody will be interested. Because somebody is a mumukshu, he is no more interested in building houses and cars and doing big, big rituals to go to Shwarga, because he knows these are binding in nature. Etanyapita karmani sangam tyaktva phalanicha. So you will have to get rid of two things. One, you will not be attached to the results of these karmas, nor you will be having asakti. What is the asakti? It has been clarified. Having that ahankara, I'm doing this, and having a very strong sense of attachment. So Bhagavan Shankaracharya is clarifying this. Etani apita karmani yajna dana tapangsi pavanani. So this is what Bhagavan has said, that these yajna, dana and tapa, these are purificatory in nature. Uktani sangam is asaktim. Sangam means asaktim. Tesu tyaktva. So leaving all that, phalani cha tesam tyaktva. Also try to get rid of any aspiration, any craving for the results thereof. Tyaktva parityajya kartavyani. One should do these. Iti anushthyani iti me mataha. Iti mama nishchitam matam uttamam. This is my final word of approval on whether to stop doing karmas or not. On this particular thing, there's a whole lot of dialogue which is very, very relevant, because there are certain Vaidika karmas which involve a bit of hingsha. Like Dasa Purnamasa, it's categorized. It can be Kamya karma, it can be also Nitya karma. Darsha is a ritual you do on the new moon days, Amavasyas. And Purnamasa is on the Purnimas. And there are prayas or niyas also you have to do. That's a long process which is discussed in Mimamsha Darshana. Now, there is a Agni Somya Yaga out there as part of this whole Prakarana, where there is Pasu Hingsa, Pasu Alavanam. Agni Somyam Pasum Alaveta. So now Pasu Alavanam is sacrifice of the animal. Now, there will be people, the Sankhya Darshan, the Darshanikas, the Sankhya Mata, followers, who are very right in a way, in a certain way, because they dumped all the Vedic rituals, whatever rituals they thought, end of the day, just because this is mentioned in the Vedas, you are indulging in them. Please be aware that you are also inviting some papas. Why? Because look, you might do it in the name of some kind of a Vedic ritual, or whatever the animal you are sacrificing. That was also the challenge from Buddhists and the Jains, that these rituals of animal sacrifices are just too much. If you go to Nepal on certain occasions, you'll feel scared because of the scale of animal sacrifice which happens there. In Eastern India, also, there was a lot of animal sacrifice. Now that has come down, because this is, in a way, historical perversion of the spiritual understanding. This is a kind of there's a French philosopher of religion and theology. He has done a great amount of work on which he's saying that essentially you are externalizing the evil. You are killing a black goat because the evil, you are trying to, externalize it, attribute evil to that black animal, and you're sacrificing it. But there's a lot of research on it. that all communities try to externalize the evil in them. Therefore, they want to kill an animal. The evil is within all of us, if at all. We need to flush it out through japa and through dhyana. And that is why japa yajna is considered to be highest, even by Bhagavan himself. Among all these yajnas, I am yapa yajna. So Madhusudana is having a very long academic dialogue on that. It's very relevant, but if we get stuck with it, because it's a long dialogue, it will take almost 2 days. But we will lose touch with the uh, context in which we are discussing. So we'll do the three mantras today. What is Satvika Tyaga, what is Rajasika Tyaga, what is Tamasika Tyaga. We'll have the overall understanding. And after this, tomorrow maybe, we will get into dealing with the details of the dialogue, which Madhusudana Saraswati is doing only on verse number 6. There's a very long dialogue, and we'll get into that. So he's saying that this is kartavya, provided you do not allow the sangam tyaktva. You should not get affected by it. Okay, so samangasya falarthina, sasangasya, those who are asakta, those who are having asanga or asakti falarthino, bandha hetava etani pe karmani mukhyo kartavyani iti api saptasya artho, nato anyani karmani apekhya etani api iti uchyate. I mean, this is an academic point. He's trying to say that etani, that word, why is it used? Because he wants to categorize different of karmas. And he's saying only these karmas are to be done, having sacrificed, having avoided any attachment to the very agency, very activity, and phala. So only a few activities. He's saying no, it's nothing like that. This has relation to the verse number 4, that is the upakrama, and this is the upasanghara. And he's saying no one is interested in kamya karmas. It's not a dialogue about whether to do nitya karma or kamya karma, because we have already explained earlier that the people who are mumukshus, they are least interested in kamya karmas. Because he then mentions durina, yavaram karma, yagyarthat karmanonyatra, and traividya mam somapaha, traigunya vishaya veda, nistirgunya vavar. He's already quoting from different places. Kini, Punya, Matyalokam, Vishanti, people come back. So Shankaracharya is giving a lot of quotations to say that we are dealing with a specific category of spiritual aspirants in this chapter. Who are they? They are karma adhikaris. At the same time, they are also mumukshus. They want liberation. They are like many of us who want to do sadhana, who want to get liberation, who want to have self-realization. But they do not have enough of training. They don't have that Vividisa sannyasa. They haven't got Atmagyana. They are not Vidvat sannyasis. They are still karmadhikaris, but having strong aspirations for self-realization. What should they do? Should they leave all activities, their job, their family, whatever spiritual activities they are doing, and go to a forest and sit there? Bhagavan says no, because the process of purification is still an ongoing process. It's still in an evolving state. As they say, when you prepare a draft document in corporates, they always put it at the top, work in progress, or they say draft. That means this is not final and not to be quoted anyway. You cannot use it for any purpose. And they make it mandatory that it remains within a certain group of people. So, in different corporates, especially the bigger ones with very sensitive information, whenever any mail is sent out, it's all decided in the mail itself as to who are the people who can actually read it. And sometimes they cannot even save it. They cannot copy it. They can read it, especially HR related matter. You can give your comments and it'll all go somewhere. It'll be there in the system. You cannot show it to anyone. You cannot say there's an investigation going against you, something like that. Complete detachment, and you do it, that's not a problem. Now, in the next verse, now he's going to clarify one after other. First, he's dealing with what is called the Tamasika Sannyasa. Please understand here that we are not talking about Karma Tyaga here. So, in the first two ones, he's going to deal with people who have a temptation to believe that because all karmas are doshavat, all activities are binding in nature, we should stop doing activities. This is one point of view. It could be the point of view of Sankhyas or the Buddhis or the Jains, and then any kind of person who doesn't want to do. Here, Bhagavan is clarifying that this is stupid. This is a little foolish. This is not a very wide step. Why? Because activities, I have clarified in verse number 6, are by nature, I mean, these activities are purifying in nature. They have the potential to purify you on one condition. You are not attached to the process and you are not looking for results. You are doing it out of a sense of duty. Then they become purificatory in nature. They have a purifying impact on it. And then, as a result, as a consequence of that process of self purification, refinement of our internal self, we are better prepared to graduate to a higher level of engagement, higher level of meditation on the truth, on the divine. And we'll have better and better concordance, better and better integration with the self. That is what's the advice. Therefore, he's saying in the verse number 7, he's first rejecting any temptation to run away from all activities, and he's saying this is born out of ignorance. Don't run away because you are a karma adhikari, you are not a sarva karma sannyasi, you are not a vividisa sannyasi, you still have a lot of duties, and this is very relevant, these two verses, for the grihasthas and brahmacharis, whosoever who are in the sansara. नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः कर्मणो नोपपद्यते मोहात् तस्य परित्यागस्तामसः परिकीर्तितः niyatasya. Niyata means it's nothing to do with fate. Niyata means nityasya. Nitya naimidika karma. Those who are supposed to be done on special occasion, like for example, there is a priti sadhra shraddha divasha, and you don't do the shraddha. And there are certain statements which says in the Puranas and certain other spiritual texts that these pitrulokas, they fall in the hell because we do not do the tarpana and shraddha. So we should definitely do it. By not doing it, we'll have a lot of pratyavaya, evil impacts, certain evil consequences. Because, I mean, end of the day, we are here because these pitrulokas brought us here, they gave us food, they raised us. So it's very important that we have what is a Hindu way of thanksgiving, a certain rituals, a way of remembering them. And when we do it, our children also learn that you can't have a life of ungratefulness. It's quite possible that the father or grandfather wasn't a great person. Maybe he was a little rude to you. It's quite possible, but that doesn't take away anything from our duty to observe Thanksgiving, to Shraddha, and to Tarpanas. These are Naimitika karmas, and there are many other Prayaschitta karmas as well. So, Niyatasya, these Nitya Naimitika karma, Tasya tu Sannyasa, if you are dropping them, Karmanaha, Nityasya Karmanaha, Sannyasa na upapadyate. No, never. Sannyasa is never ever possible to accept. It's not tenable. Moha tasya parityagaha. But some people do it. Why do they do it? Because of moha. What is that? Ajnana. Because of a faulty understanding. And therefore, because they are driven by ignorance, what kind of people are they? Bhagavan has already clarified. They are tamasic people. Tamasaha parikirtitaha. So first thing, what is the vija? What is the motivating factor for this kind of a calm chore kind of an attitude? You are running away from the responsibility. It's essentially tamasika sannyasa. So if somebody, you remember that story I often repeat, that how a person with 4 or 5 children, a man in his late 20s, ran to Thakur and said, I've lost interest. Thakur, I want to be with you and do spiritual sadhana. He wanted to find out whether he's married. He says, yes. You have children? Yes. How many? 4, 5. Where are they? And they are with my wife. And where is your wife? No, she has gone back to her parents' house. You say, oh my God, this guy has come here for sannyasa. He's given birth to children, and then there's a little young woman who has to feed them, take care of them, and they are all a burden on a person who expected this man to take care of his daughter. He's a sinner. Thakur drove him out of his temple very quickly. He drove him away from Dakshineshwar. So, therefore, these are tamasic people, and how Shankaracharya explains it. Niyatasya tu means nityasya sannyasa parityagaha. Nityasya karmanaha sannyasa means parityagaha. Karmanaha na upapadyate. Nityasya karmanaha sannyasa means parityagaha na utpadyate. It's not tenable. Ajnasya pavanatvasya ishtatvad. Because those who are karmadhikaris, who are not yet atmakya, for them, these nitya karmas and nitya naimitika karmas are purifying in nature. So we should do it for antakarna suddhi. Mohat ajnana tasya nityasya niyatasya parityagaha. Some people do run away from these duties, these activities, these pujas and rituals. That is because of stupidity or a kind of an unwise approach to things. There are a lot of people who are highly materialistic, and if you talk to them, I'm doing a Ganesh puja, Saraswati puja, or I'm doing a Sandhya Vandanam, a Gayatri. उनसे उससे क्या मिलता है? प्रमोशन मिल जाएगा तुम्हें, काम करो अपना, भगवान कहा है गीता में. But they don't want to get into it and understand the whole import of what is being conveyed here. They have this capsule Gita, looking at whatever is there on the WhatsApp University or something like that, and they will misinterpret. They will misinterpret it, but it doesn't say that you get rid of whatever is prescribed. Certain activities, but certain minimum things one should do. Niyatam cha avasyam kartavyam. The nitya karmas, obviously you should do them. त्यज्यते च इति विप्रतिसिद्धम अतो मोह निमित्तः परित्यागः तामसः परिकीर्तितो मोह च तमः इति. So he's saying that whereas the nitya karmas are always avashya kartabya, definitely doable, must be done, there are some people having this doubt that why to do it, let's get rid of it. And so if you do the tyaga, it is pratisiddha. It is very much contrary to what the Shastra says. And therefore, this sort of sacrifice, this sort of a tyaga is not sacrifice. This is actually a wrongdoing that we are engaging in. It will harm us because we are not allowing ourselves to be purified. And the loss is ours. Somebody gets up early morning, takes a bath and meditates. And somebody is lying down on bed and saying, I want to sleep well. This is winter. Whose loss is this? The one who is sleeping. The one who gets up early morning, he has a sense of freshness. He feels much better. A person who finishes his work in time is always more relaxed in office than the one who is trying to do it at the 11th hour. I mean, that is true of all of us. Now, in the next verse, we are going to the verse number 8. I'm at all not getting into Madhusudana Saraswati because we'll do that tomorrow once we have done all this. Dukkham ityeva yat karma kaya klesha bhayat tyajed sakritva rajasam tyagam naiva tyaga phalam labhe. And there are other category people. Bhagavan is also talking about that. Who are these people? Dukkham ityeva yat karma. There are some people who do not want to do it. What I have to do? Well, you have to do a Shraddham. What does it involve? Well, you have to bring some, black sesame and water and kusha and those particular grass, dry grass, may not be available everywhere, that kusha, that darva. And then you need to know the mantras. And you need a tamra patri to hold it. And you have a achamana patra and you have, all these things are there. And then you will sit and you will have to do the Rishi Tarpana. You must have your secretary. So you will do the Rishi Tarpana, Deva Tarpana, and you will do the Pitri Tarpana. And you have to look at the southward direction. We are doing Pitri Tarpana, Rishi Tarpana. Look at the northerly direction. Look at the eastern direction for the Deva Tarpana. They are all complicated things and takes about 15-20 minutes. And then you also remember Bhishma, all the relatives who didn't have any children. Then you are also offering water to everybody on earth, whosoever has died, whether he's a relative or not. Then you are saying it's quite possible, it's interesting that towards the end of the Tarpana, There are certain sentences saying it's quite possible that I had a lot of brothers and sisters in different births. It's possible that some of them are suffering. And therefore, I'm also offering water to them. I'm also praying for them. It's a wonderful prayer. It's a wonderful spiritual prayer where you are relating to the whole of the universe. But who is interested? So it's very painful. No, my guru says, have sahaja bhava. You sit and put on the fan or put on the AC and sit quietly and don't torture yourself. You should feel happy. I listen to Osho Rajneesh. He doesn't accept all that. It's quite possible, isn't it? So Bhagavan says there are certain people who do this kind of sacrifice, sannyasa. Dukkham ityeva yat karma kaya klesha bhayatyaje. Kaya klesha. Who is going to sit for 15 minutes to do this? Kaya klesha. Kaya is sarira, klesha is stress. Bhayat, and then you have fear of that particular stress. I have backache, I can't sit for so long. Bhayat tyaje. Some people don't do it. They do this kind of tyaga. Sa kritva sa rajasam tyagam kritva. If a person does this kind of rajasika tyaga, why is it called rajasika? But it has some correlationship with stress, and there is a consciousness of stress. I don't want to have it. It is dukkhatmaka, and therefore you want to avoid it. It's rajasika. End of the day, this whole mindset is rajasika. It's calculating whether I'm going to take the stress or not. And therefore, it's called Rajasika. Naiva Tyaga Phalam Labhet. You might stop doing this. That is why he's saying this. Because Arjuna, if you remember, Arjuna, the dear friend of Lord Krishna, wanted not to fight the war. And he said that I want to go. Why don't you give me some advice? And he's saying, why are you saying Jnana Yoga is for this, and then you are forcing me into this war? Why are you doing this? Very stressful, isn't it, my friend? The Bhagavan is saying, look here, because it's stressful if you are running away, because it is going to cause you some mental stress, some physical stress, you are running away. First thing, you please remember, you are putting an end to the process of self-evolution. Why? Because by doing the activities that we are doing or we're supposed to do, having got rid of a sense of attachment and craving for results, we open the doors to self-purification. We keep ourselves, having the potential. We keep that potential in us intact. What is the potential? The potential for self-realization. By continuing to purify ourselves through Nishkama Karma. Ishwar Arapana Vidya Krita Nishkama Karma. That potential is intact. The possibility is always intact. So you are not foreclosing that possibility. Doing Rajasika Tyaga, you foreclose that possibility. But do you get Moksha? That is the Tyaga Phala. You run away. Will you get Atmagyana? No, you will not get Atmagyana. You are looking for relief from physical stress. That you might get. And then you'll also get indolence. Then your mind will have interest in all tamasika things. The animal behavior will replace the spiritual activity you are doing. And that's all true about all of us. Whenever we replace something we call stressful, which is in interest of us, what does the mind, what does it look for? It looks for a kind of, what do you call it, an escape into a world of whatever it considers pleasant. And once you get into this choice of looking for something pleasant, slowly but steadily we are sliding downwards. If you are doing it occasionally to refresh oneself, that's all fine. You go for a party, have some food, or go on a holiday, these are all fine. Provided you are constantly aware of your job, your responsibilities, your happiness, your sadhana, everything, then you recharge your batteries. But the moment you are afraid of your job, your responsibilities, you are running away somewhere on a holiday, you will not get the benefit, whatever. You will have more burden because you have to come back and do your work. So Bhagavan says, no, this kind of tyaga is not good. You will not get any results, so don't run away. Dukkham iti eva yat karma kaya klesa bhayat. because of this fear of physical or mental strain. Sarira dukkha bhayat. It could be physical or mental. Tyajet, parityajet, sa kritva, sa tyaga kritva, that parityagam kritva, rajasam, rajo nirbrittam tyagam kritva. If you do this rajasika tyaga, naiva tyaga phalam, that particular tyaga phala, which is jnana purvakasya sarva karma tyagasya phalam. So the guy who is already studying a lot of Vedanta, he has finished his karmas, his activities, he has taken permission from his mother or wife and from his children, if he's married and has children. He has got the approval to become a sannyasi, fine enough. And then he studies, which is good. And then at the end of it, he becomes completely detached to the world. Then he's a sarvakarma sannyasi. He's doing nididhyasana. He might get moksha. But this running away guy, which is because of a fear of responsibilities, fear of strain and stress of life, he doesn't get anything. There are quite a few of them, even in Rishikesh, everywhere. They have run away from life because they didn't want to take up the challenge of life. They don't get anything. They, in fact, run from ashram to ashram because even in ashram, they do not want to do the seva. They are scared of any work. So they will be rejected wherever they go. Jnanapurvakasya sarvakarma tyagasya phalam mokyakyam na labhe na eva labhate. So the world is closed, the doors are closed for them. Now let's look at the sattvika thing, the best thing that is discussing in the verse number 9. And the verse number 9, in a way, would be a footnote, a commentary on the verse number 6, where he has said that Sangyam Tattva, you should do your Nitya Naimitika Karma. That is the verse number 9. Karyam ityeva yat karma niyatam kriyate arjuna sangam tyaktva phalam saiva satyagaha satviko mataha. And there are other people, and Bhagavan has said it n number of times even earlier, that there is a difference between a mithyachari and a vishishta. He's a nitya sannyasi. He is a man who takes care of his wife, his children, he does his job. I'm reminded, I'm just repeating it, even though I may have already mentioned it earlier. I'm sure I have mentioned it, I'm just repeating it because it's such a beautiful story to remember. There was this monk who was sitting in a jungle. He did a lot of sadhana, and this is mentioned in Sukraniti. And he goes on doing a lot of sadhana, perhaps in the introduction to Sukraniti. So he does a lot of sadhana, and then after many years of meditation, this young man opens his eyes. When he opens his eyes, there were two birds, they were perched on a branch, and they were romantically sitting and, pecking at each other. And because of his yogic power, the moment he opens his eyes, they burn to ash and they fall down. And this young sannyasi realizes that he has a lot of yogic power. So the fire of his yoga sakti, that fire, burned these two birds because they were doing something contrary to what he was doing. So that was the understanding he had, and he thought that I think I have reached the destination. Let me start doing what is called that I'll become a parivrajaka. Let me move around as a parivraj. He goes to a village. He's very hungry. He has been meditating for a long many years or days or months. And he finds one house in the beginning of a village. It's a hot summer day. He stands at the gate and say, Bhavati Viksham Dehi, oh mother, please give me food. And the lady answers from behind, Bete khade raho, I'm coming. So he's saying, Putra Tishta, Agachami, I shall come and take care of you. But she doesn't come. And he's there and he repeats that. And after about half an hour, 1 hour, she opens the door. And there's a young lady, who invites him inside. He said, Beta, baitho. He's a little amused that this young woman is addressing him as son. But he's pleasantly surprised, but at the same time very angry, because this woman has kept him standing in a hot, under the sun on a hot summer day. So, and then she shoves him food. The sannyasi, young sannyasi, is quite happy, pleased about the food, but he sternly looks at her. He's saying, "Mother, do you know who am I?" And the young woman looks at him with motherly affection and smiles and says, "My son, I am not the bird in the forest which got burned to ash." And the young sannyasi gets flabbergasted. How does she know? This is a householder. This woman is a housewife. She is pretty uneducated. She lives in this village. I have studied the Shastras. I have done a lot of meditation. And she does this to me. She knows what I'm thinking about. He says, "Mother, forgive me, but how do you know all this?" The mother smiles and says, "Son, please understand that my husband is not a learned Brahmin like you. He goes to the cornfields early in the morning to do cultivation. He goes very early morning without any food and he comes back at daybreak, at the midday, and I have to serve him food. So when he came, about the time you came, he also came. So I had to give him water, and then he took a bath, and then whatever I had cooked, I had to serve him, and then he had his lunch, and then he's completely tired. I had to fan him a little because I know when the sun goes down a little, he'll go back to the cornfield again to work for another 3 4 hours in the afternoon or in the evening. His life is very hard. So the moment he fell asleep, I immediately called you in to serve you food, and I've cooked some extra dishes for you." The young sannyasi was very impressed and touched her feet and said, "Mother, you are my first guru. Please tell me what is the secret of all this." She says, "This is the secret of karma, the power of karma. I know things because I'm all the time united with my inner self because of my dutiful deliverance, all the activities that I do, I perform, I commit my activities without a sense of attachment. So I'm a completely Niskama Karma Yogi with full faith in the grace of the Lord. I live my life. So I'm a Nitya Sannyasi, and this is the result of that. And the sannyasi is very greedy for knowledge. He says, "Mother, you must tell me where I can learn more about these secrets." Then she tells him, "You need to go to a man, that butcher in the marketplace, and he'll tell you the rest." And then this man goes there. He finds that there's a guy who is selling meat. He's again scared. I'm a sannyasi. I'm going to talk to a man who is selling meat. But he stands there. The Vyadha looks at him and smiles and says, "Please wait. I know. Mother from the village has sent you, hasn't she?" He says, "Yes." And he stands there. He finishes his work and then he takes him and gives him a lecture. The dialogue is captured in Vyadha Gita. And this Vyadha Gita was very, very a big favorite of Swami Vivekananda. And he tells him the secrets of karma. He says, "Because of my prarabdha, I am born as a butcher, I'm a meat seller. I have nothing to do with it. I live a life of complete truth and service and love for God. So where we are and what we are doing doesn't in any way limit what can be the depth of our spiritual realization, what can be the intensity of our proximity to God. It has nothing to do with it. And that is what is captured here. And that is what Sankaracharya is saying. Bhagavan is saying in the verse number 9, "Karyam ityeva yat karma." ये कर्म करना ही है. This is karyam, karaniyam, niyatam, yat karma. Tad niyatam karmam kriyate. Arjuna, how? Sangam tyaktva phalam chaiva. Two things be careful about while doing karma. Like that poor housewife who is not born in a very aristocratic family. She has no maidservants, no assistants. She does everything herself, but all the time established in the self. She lives in the self, abides in the self. So Sangam Tyaktva Phalam Chaiva. Asakti bhi chhodiye. You get rid of your attachment, your complete obsession with your ego self, and also the craving for results thereof. And if you can do it, Satviko Tyagah Satviko Mataha. It's my view that that is Satvika Tyaga. Do you want to do Satvika Tyaga? Then this is the way to do it. That is what Bhagavan is explaining. In very brief, beautiful ways, he explains it. Let's look at the Sankaracharya thing, because there are a couple of logical points to be made there. Karyam means kartavyam. Iti eva yat karma niyatam. Niyatam means nityam. Nityam karma kriyate. Nivartyate. Kriyate means nirvartan karta hai. What is delivered? What is performed? Hey Arjuna, how sangam tyaktva phalam cha eva. So you do that, but without getting involved and without craving for the results. Nityanam karmanam phalavatti bhagavat vachanam pramanam avochama. Because here, the nitya karmas, you should do it. And that is what is obviously clarified by Bhagavan here. अथवा यद्यपि फलम न श्रूयते नित्यस्य कर्मणः तथापि नित्यम कर्म कृतम आत्म संस्कारम प्रत्यवाय परिहारम वा फलम करोति आत्मनः इति कल्पयति एव अज्ञः तत्र ताम अपि कल्पनां निवारयति फलं त्यक्त्वा इति अनेन अतः साधु उक्तं संगम त्यक्त्वा फलं च इति. Now, this is an academic point, but interesting academic point, and I'll simplify it. What he's trying to say is, you remember earlier there was one defense lawyer, we call them Purva Paksha, the defense lawyers. They challenge whatever the Siddhanti says. So there was this Purva Paksha argument, जे फल तो सिर्फ काम्यों कर्मों का ही होता है, नित्य कर्म का त्याग यहाँ जो आप बात कर रहे हैं, it should be only about काम्य कर्म, because nitya karmas they have no phalas. So phalam tyaktva, the moment you are mentioning, it should only refer to kamya karmas like yajnas and big dasa purnamasa is a nitya karma. But there are other karmas like soma yajna, agnishtoma, yotishtoma, a different kind of big rituals are there. So the kamya karmas you should do phalatyaga. Okay, that was the argument. But that was rejected by Sankaracharya. He mentioned very clearly that karmadhikari hote hue bhi, even if a person is a karmadhikari, he's not a sannyasi, but he's a mumukshu. He's interested in self-realization. And therefore, why should he waste money and time and attention on these kamya karmas? They are hated by people interested in jnana, and jnana is both. They know that these are binding in nature. So, even case of nitya karma and naimittika karma also, you should do phalatyaga. But how can you do phalatyaga? Because there is no phala. That actually the Shastra says there is phala. So he's saying here that there are certain people who are not very wise in the Shastras, but they do nitya naimittika karma, and they do, how do they do it? They think, मैं nitya karma karne par, I'll have atma sanskara, purification of myself. Or I will avoid papa, pratyavaya parihara. There are certain negative results. If I don't go to office in time, my manager is going to be negatively disposed towards me. He'll feel bad about me. So that is pratyavaya. By going to office in time, you are avoiding that negative consequence, which might reflect in your performance appraisal. And by going to work in time, you are creating positive conditions for you to look at the whole agenda and whatever you want to deliver that day, whatever meetings you have. So you are better placed than others to respond to all the mails in a more timely manner and do your work and have a sense of satisfaction. Also find time for 2 coffee breaks. You can go to cafeteria twice. Why? Because you went to office in time. If you go late, you're short of time and you're running after deadlines. Therefore, they want to do that nitya karma. That is one explanation. Sankaracharya is fine, not a problem. Even in that case, who is more superior? The one who sacrifices phala. That I'll have prativaya parihara, that there'll be antakarna suddhi. Even that kind of thinking, a particular person also dumps. And that is why it is very sadhu that is mentioned. Even in that case, that phalatyaga, even in nitya karma, you are doing pranayama, you are doing tarpana, you are not looking for any phala, but it's quite possible because you have read the Shastras, you may have some phalakamana, or because you have this natural tendency, kuch to kar raha hu, kuch to milega. Even dump those ideas and then do it. That is the ultimate thing. Atha sadhu uktam sangam tyaktva phalam cha iti. Even in case of nitya karmas, this phalam tyaktva and that asaktim tyaktva, both are relevant. Satyago nitya karmashu sangha phala parityagaha. Even in nitya karmas, sangha and phala, both parityagaha sattvikaha. These are very spiritual. Why? Because what is the state of mind of a person? Sukhatmaka, having a sense of balance. So that is sattvika tyaga. He is not having any craving. Sattva nibduto mataha avimataha. So this is kind of this particular kind of a tyaga. That means only phala and sangha tyaga. But karma samapana, you continue to do the work, but you don't have either craving for results or involvement. No, no. कर्म परित्यागः त्रिविधः संन्यासः इति च प्रकृतः तत्र तामसो राजसः च उक्तः त्यागः कथं यः संगफलत्यागः तृतीयत्वेन उच्यते यथा त्रयो ब्राह्मणाः आगताः तत्र षडङ्गविधौ द्वौ क्षत्रियः तृतीय इति तद्वत्. He's saying, sir, I'm a little confused. You are trying to cheat me. One of the students is saying this. You know what is his doubt? He's saying, you said you are going to discuss tyaga of three kinds. Okay. So tamasika tyaga and rajasika tyaga is what kind of tyaga? That is karma tyaga. These people don't do the karmas. अब जब सात्विक त्याग का बात करते हैं, you drop the word karma. You are saying phala tyaga. You do karma. When you have to still do the karma, how can you call it sattvika tyaga? Is it karma tyaga? It's like what you are saying. तीन ब्राह्मण आए, उनमें दो षडंग को पढ़े हैं, all the ancillary texts of Vedas, और एक क्षत्रिय है. How do you talk like that? You said that three Brahmins who came, two are experts in the Vedas, the third one is a kshatriya. It's not contradictory. The first statement is three Brahmins, and then suddenly you were saying two Brahmins and one kshatriya. First you said tyagaha trividaha. Now you are saying tyagaha dvividaha. Tritiya tyagaha phalatyagaha, na to karma tyagaha. How can you talk like this? I am very, very confused. Bhagwan says, Naisho dosha. No, no, it's not a problem. Shankaracharya is smiling. He's saying, no, no, it's not a problem. Please understand what is intended here. Tyaga samanyana stutyarthatvat. ये जो त्रिविध त्राग का बात कर रहे हैं, this just to praise it. Stutyartha. It is in order to praise it so that you are interested in this. अस्ति हि कर्म संन्यासस्य फलाभिसन्धि त्यागस्य च त्यागत्व सामान्यम. फलाभिसंधि त्याग, फल एंड आसक्ति त्याग, उसमें भी त्याग नहीं है क्या? फल त्याग में तो त्याग है. There's a sense of renunciation. Those who drop the activities, that is karma tyaga, that is also renunciation. What is common in all of them? Sense of detachment, sense of breaking away from something. But the sattvika breaking away from something is not dropping your responsibility. It's a responsibility without expectation. And that is why it's called sattvika. It is the highest kind of renunciation. The first two renunciations of activities, either because of fear of distress or because of a faulty understanding, because of tamasika thing, because of ignorance. These are tamasika and rajasika tyaga. Renunciation, what is there? Not very desirable from a spiritual standpoint. That's all he's saying. Not desirable for whom? Not for Vidva sannyasis who have finished their activities and they have no interest in the world. For the karma adhikaris, for the grihasthas, students, sannyasis. You know, it's like a young man who has examination and he calls you up and says, Swamiji, अब पढ़ाई करके कुछ होने वाला तो नहीं है. ऐसे भी आपने जो बता रहे हैं क्लास में, you know, it's all about renunciation. I said, why? What happened? No, you have to take your examination. You first study for your examination. You are trying to take your mind off your coursework by listening to Vedanta. No, no, I'm sorry, that's dangerous. You study for 10 hours. 1 hour we discuss Vedanta to keep your mind away from samsara. That is great. And that's what all Ramakrishna Mission does with the youth people. You do your studies, you do your personality development, stay loyal and respectful to your parents, and you come on Sundays for the youth program. That's all good. We have personality development packages and meditation and everything. But you're saying you don't want to study, you don't want to do anything, and you want to take sannyasa, you are not yet there. We'll watch you, we'll tell you when you are ready for it. No, but Nachiketa and Dhruva and all, no, no. Don't pick up stories from Puranas to hide and justify your own indolence and fear of responsibility. That is what Bhagavan Shankaracharya says. So he's saying, Sattvikatvena stuyate satyagaha sattviko mataha. It is praised, beautiful living of life and doing sattvika sadhana is considered sattvika tyaga, and Bhagavan has also referred to them as nitya sannyasis. This is stuti. This is to glorify karma sannyasa. This is to glorify not sarva karma sannyasa, to glorify nishkama karma as nitya sannyasa. Nishkama karma is very important. The sansara will come to an end. So you have to do seva, you have to take care of your family, and therefore that's being praised here. That is how sort of the ninth verse comes to an end. And uh, it is very important that we take all these three verses in together to understand that this chapter is actually, it's about sannyasa yoga, isn't it? The 18th chapter. So Bhagavan here is telling us the message is quite clear. In a way, this is an extension of whatever he has already taught us in chapter 3 and 4 and 5. If you remember, in chapter 6, he mentioned Arurukyur Munir Yogam. What is that? Karma Karanamuchyate. That you have to do karma. Those who are trying to establish themselves in yoga. If you are yoga rudha, then sama karanamuchyate. You can do that sama, that pacifying of the mind. You can do manonasa. In the process of evolving, karma is very important. So if you look at some of these spiritual, different schools of thought are there, but if you look at, for example, in our own country, if you look at all the bhakti yogis, the Vaishnava traditions and the Sakta traditions, so if you look at the Sakta traditions, that's why they say that bhukti mukti pradayini. Bhukti is experience of life. Some people say that I can do bhoga. No, it's about experience, a fuller understanding and a fuller experience of life. But I don't want to sort of deviate into that. If you look at the Ramakrishna Parampara, they talk about that karma yoga is very important. And Swami Vivekananda gave a lot of importance to that this is the most important part of it. And in the name of spiritual life and the traditional Vedantis, for example, the modern or the what is called practical Vedanta. So they also say that you cannot just talk about Brahman and just relax. No, you have to do something for society as well. And therefore, when we're talking about Niskama Karma, to my mind, this particular verse is very important for a range of reasons. Spiritually, for self development, this is critical for self purification. That is one aspect. But otherwise, also, you look at it for a better society. If somebody is a Jivana Mukta and something, his very presence spreads love around, and that is a justification for not doing anything at an intermediate stage of sadhana, is misleading. It is true that if a Buddha is walking on the street, his very presence is going to, bring in luminosity on many lives, easily understandable. But doesn't mean a brahmachari who is having some half-baked ideas about liberation. He has picked up a few slokas from here and there. He says, I'm a sannyasi and I don't want to do anything. I do not do any seva or anything. That is self-defeating. That is one critical thing to be taken. And even if somebody is a sannyasi, even if somebody is a very spiritual person, from this sloka, there's a lot of signaling, the kind of direction coming out of it, that we need to integrate in our spiritual life an element of charity, an element of love for the greater good of the greatest number in society, for the underprivileged, for somebody who is in need, somebody who needs help, because these are all nishkama karmas. Here, the text, the traditional interpreters of the text will try to limit the discourse to nitya namitika karma and the Vedic rituals. They would like to do that because that is what is the limited sense in which we can make sense of these slokas, this whole of Bhagavad Gita. But I think we have to take Bhagavad Gita outside of the Sanskritic interpretations to the larger world, where we interconnect ourselves, our sadhana life, interconnect us, our life world, with the larger life world of people around us. So, if we are reading Bhagavad Gita and we are doing this chapter 18, but if somebody is in dire needs and she calls you up for some help, and then you're not doing it, saying it's not my duty, you have to look at your capacity, of course. But if you can do something, you can extend some help, you should never consider that. We should never consider that to be a distraction in our spiritual life. But of course, you cannot jeopardize what you're doing. You are having a job and you have to be present in the office at the right time, but suddenly you find there's an accident. And then you want to help the person who is trapped somewhere. You have to take a call. It's a very important meeting. Maybe you will call up police, you will try to call up 911, or in India, you will call 108, an ambulance service, so that the fellow can be taken to a hospital. You'll do the minimum and then try to go. But if you have an examination and there's a deadline, you have to be present there. Choice is yours. I mean, you have to decide ultimately. There's a beautiful story I had read uh, by Jean-Paul Sartre, Essays on Existentialism, and he was talking about one of his students. And during the Second World War, this French student comes up to Jean-Paul Sartre and he asks him for advice. He has a very curious situation. He wants to protect France. He wants to fight for France because the Germans are going to come and capture Paris when that is the moment. But he has an ailing mother at home and he's asking Jean-Paul Sartre, please give me a piece of advice. What should I do? Should I go and join the war because that is the call of the hour? Or I'll have to take care of my mother who is ailing. And Sartre says that this is a radical moment in your life. I cannot advise you, and that will not be perfect. You have to sit with yourself. You have to take a call. What gives meaning and significance to your life? If you leave behind your ailing mother and go and join the war, maybe you will feel very proud that I, as a French man, have fought for my country and I'm going to live my life, sacrifice my life for my country. That will give you a sense of moral happiness. But it will also give you a sense of moral guilt that I had to, I ignored my ailing mother who suffered a painful death. I mean, that's for you to take a call. And these kinds of situations, which in philosophy are referred to as situations of moral conflict, these situations can be there. Just imagine there is some amount of money you have, which is good enough to give scholarship to a student. So you have a daughter, and then you come across a student who is brighter than your daughter, but she is very poor. She has got a university seat. Your daughter has also got a university seat, and you have the money to pay for her tuition and for boarding and everything. That girl has got a tuition waiver, but she hasn't got a scholarship, but she's very deserving. You look at them and you know that her life is going to change. Now it's for you, because if you give that money which you have for your daughter away to this lady who is coming from a very depressed social background, it's quite possible that your daughter shall never forgive you again. She'll not forgive you. She'll be very angry with you. Now, whether you should help that girl or not, it's up to you. But that's a situation of moral conflict. That requires a larger philosophical and spiritual reflection. What we are discussing here, these are certain general principles of how to move in life. These verses, Bhagavad Gita, are not providing very specific answers to many spiritual crises that we may undergo in our individual lives. So, we will take whatever is conveyed to us and then, in a specific context, make sense of them and apply them to our individual lives. Then we will be able to apply what Bhagavan says here. So many times you can teach Bhagavad Gita, you can read Bhagavad Gita, but when you start living your life on an everyday basis, it's quite possible that these three principles of what is Tyaga, that Sangha and Phalatyaga have a sense of duty, doesn't make your life free from any conflict. In special situations, you will still have moral conflict because the father who wants to help either the daughter for her studies or the neighbor's daughter who is very poor but more deserving, he doesn't have a clue because he is doing it out of dutifulness without craving for any results. He's a complete nitya sannyasi. Even then, he has some kind of a fear. Now, what is the answer from Bhagavad Gita point of view? If he's a nitya sannyasi, perhaps he will not be scared of his daughter not forgiving him because that Phala Sangha both he has sacrificed. Most likely, he will have a good conversation with his daughter and the neighbor daughter at the same place, okay, and have a good discussion so that the daughter approves of it, or he can give some other method of help to that neighbor's daughter so that she gets a chance to continue studies. He will try to do. These are difficult moral situations, but you are not trapped in them. So, this particular thing in Bhagavad Gita, they are telling us some broad moral frameworks, they're providing broad moral frameworks which we can use to address specific moral conflicts in our individual lives. Okay, so I'll stop here and we'll take it forward tomorrow. So I'm putting an end to the YouTube. If you have any questions, you can ask and